So good morning everyone in busy Delphi, and I want to thank ELIAMEP first for hosting us in this, I will call it working breakfast, but there's no food, so working morning meeting. I think the topic is very important because it was always, in the last couple of years, enlargement was seen as a burden for Europe, for European citizens, and in times of, geopolitical disturbances, to see enlargement, especially Western Balkans EU accession as a European Union geopolitical win, is something that needs to be also narrated, even though we all have our difficulties. So I want to thank Ioannis and ELIAMEP for hosting this. And as the Minister needs to leave in half an hour, I will give Ioannis first floor to you to maybe set us the scene, because ELIAMEP worked a lot. You sent me like tens of papers. I spent some hours reading them, but I think that, for this group, talking in very familiar, we all know each other more or less, environment, we can be very frank and open, and we can do something and act upon your conclusions. So please, the floor is to you, and then I'll give a word to Minister Hoxha.
Thank you, Ivana. Thanks for the opportunity to not only discuss about our initiative, which is called Think NIA, New Narratives of EU Integration, but more importantly, to have such a prestigious panel to see how we can advance the agenda of EU integration and enlargement in the Western Balkans, but also beyond. Let me say a couple of things about our initiative, because I think it will set the tone for the discussion. We started the initiative because we thought there is some important gap in the way we see enlargement and the way we see European integration. We talk about the new momentum of EU integration, the new momentum for enlargement. We talk about geopolitical Europe, but we don't put our money where our mouth is. We see that we still think in old terms, even though when it comes to enlargement, even though we are discussing about geopolitical Europe, we are discussing about how to adjust to the new geopolitical reality. So somehow we talk geopolitics, but we don't translate this geopolitics into action when it comes to enlargement policy. And also, our own societies, but also very often political elites in the EU member states, still think of the accession countries in an old mindset. So they don't see them as potential contributors to this new geopolitical Europe. They don't see them as benefit as bringing benefits to European integration. They still see them as burden, as problems that we need to integrate, because otherwise we are in trouble. And what we do in our initiative is to show through analysis and through hard data that the accession countries, starting from the Western Balkans, but not only the Western Balkans, Moldova and Ukraine for sure, bring serious, important benefits to the EU. So the work that we do is not for the Western Balkan countries, it's for the EU member states to realize that we are not still back in the 90s. There is a lot of contribution that can be given from the accession countries to the EU, to the member states and the European integration process in a number of policy areas. And we have studied defense, something we don't typically associate with enlargement policy. The Western Balkans can contribute to the defense readiness of the EU, and I will give you more data later on, hopefully. We studied critical raw materials, economic resilience and economic sovereignty, and a number of policy areas we continue to investigate. So we saw through data which we present, we can openly say here, in EU capitals, in Paris, in Berlin, and other places, and other EU capitals, but especially also in Brussels, in the cabinets of commissioners and other high-level officials in Brussels. And I think very often we find them, or more often than not, that they are surprised with the data that we present, because even our officials who are in favor of enlargement, our EU officials who want to promote enlargement, they still don't have all the data to see how the enlargement can be presented as a benefit for all, not only for the accession countries. So this is the context. I think, Ivana, more or less, we can start from this, and I can provide more data about our research and what we have found in subsequent questions during the discussion.
Minister Hoxha, I will give a floor to you because you have to leave us in half an hour. Picking up to what Ioannis just described, we all know what's Albania's story, where you are standing as one of the front runners, and how openly, and I can really say frankly, with arguments, you criticize Brussels often because not giving it in the right terms and showing by your example, you know, what things can be done very pragmatically in this regard. So when you hear this initiative also from ELIAMEP, but when you see things on the ground, what can we together maybe do to accelerate this? Because sometimes I also feel coming to Brussels that, you know, bureaucracy lags behind politics, and now with geopolitics we're in some kind of mess and we don't know who can take this process forward faster than it's needed right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and apologies for being late, but blame the European Commission. I was meeting Marta Kos, and we still have because of bureaucracy, we still had really some issues to discuss in Iron before the meeting. Thank you, Ioannis. I fully agree with you, and I read your paper, and I commend ELIAMEP for really being one of the strong thinkers behind the process of enlargement, and really going into the hard data, going really into the real arguments why this is important, and really I like the look that not only for why this is important and beneficial not only for the candidate countries. I can spend a day explaining that this is important for Albania, this is important for the entire region, for the 6 Western Balkans. We know it, our citizens know it. That's one part of it. It's important, and that helps us is to explain to the member states why this is important for you as well. There was this report by an NGO in Belgrade, a very accurate report about the cost of enlargement. And it becomes, of course, ridiculous when you see that if the Western Balkans, the 6 Western Balkans are integrated, the cost for citizen of the current EU member citizens is 5 to 8 euros per year. If all the 6 entered. And we have not included into that the statutory contribution of all the countries, which of course will be part of the budget. The second, the most important study is done by the European Parliament, and that is the cost of non-enlargement. And now whoever has served in the Balkans, whoever knows the Balkans, whoever comes from the Balkans, and whoever studies the Balkans, which I don't want to call anymore the Balkans, because we have evolved from the Balkans to Western Balkans, not in the geography, but westernizing us, and from the Western Balkans to Southeast Europe. So this is the progression that I would like to have everybody understand. But it's extremely important that we have this strategic communication with the member states, that it is in their interest. It's not very difficult to see that if it worked for Greece, if it worked for Ireland, look where they are. Look where this country is. Would this country have developed in this way, with this speed, with this scale, with this growth without the European Union? I don't know if the Greek would say no. Would Ireland be today with $115,000 per capita without the European Union? No. Look at Poland. In 90, they had $1,900 GDP per capita. 29,000 now. So it's absolutely mind-blowing to see. And this is the miracle of the European Union, however complex, however difficult, however cumbersome that it may look, however difficult in reaching. And when our Atlantic partners look at the European Union, of course, they see complications, they see problems in taking decisions, they see weakness in political front, and all this is true. But what is really important is that that internal market has transformed every area that has joined it. This is what we are looking. This is why we have put every egg in one basket, and that basket is the European Union. This is what we have been seeking and doing even in the worst times when there were no one to really have the courage to be enthusiastic about the European Union because it's going nowhere, because we were being refused and we were being pushed back, and while they were telling us, yeah, you need to do reforms, but I mean, we will see for the European integration. We did the reforms because we did for ourselves. But it's easy for us, given our history, given how the region has developed, to do it together. And this is what we have been asking all the time. And had we had this mindset that we have today, had we had this alignment of interest, geopolitical and economic and future prospects of a Europe that has to be united, we would have saved ourselves a lot of time, a lot of crises, a lot of setbacks, and a lot of missed opportunities. We don't command Europe. We can only look, and still, we spoke about this, Thessaloniki, 23 years ago, one generation. One generation, those who are 23 years old now, they still see themselves outside the European Union. How can we be hopeful? How can the political elites really talk to the youth today? What can I tell to the students? So that's why I'm happy to see that it needed a crisis to produce a benefit. It needed a war to think everybody that, well, let's look differently. Let's do things differently because war is coming. The project of peace is in danger. We need to strengthen it, and we need to enlarge this area. This is the talk that fortunately, finally, has come central place in Brussels. And we're very happy, and we are anxious that it stays like that, so that we do not miss this opportunity. We are not missing it. I'm speaking about Albania. We're not missing it. Last year was absolutely a phenomenal year. This year will be another phenomenal year, and I hope that by 27 we will be able to close all the technical part, so closing all the chapters and moving on to the next stage, the accession treaty, and probably, I hope, inshallah, getting by the end of the decade, getting into the Union. It is absolutely, there is no plan B. This is what we are telling Brussels. This is we're discussing every day. And we told them, this is merit-based. We don't want shortcuts. Test us, come and see, verify, but be sincere. Because at the end of the day, it's a matter of credibility. And we are predictable. They can see through us. We want to see through them as well. We, and this is my last word, in Albania, in our history, we have one fundamental element of our behavior, and we call it the promise. We call it BESA. Thessaloniki was the European BESA. They did not keep it. We keep our BESA.
No, but I think, you touched upon a very important thing. What the Croatian Prime Minister says, all is a matter of perception. And you said that, strategic communication with member states is crucial, as, we had the change of methodology, so-called, 6 years ago already, my God. And I want to give the floor to Nikola Dimitrov, because I think, you came from a very hardcore position where you negotiated important deal for your country. You were there on the helm of it, and now you're working basically very practically on this, what Minister mentioned. So changing the perception, going around the capitals, trying to persuade people to think about enlargement in different terms, in different circumstances. So in your way, and Ioannis and me, we are also involved in that with our Europe's Futures initiative, newly established in Vienna as a center. So what can we all do in this regard? Because I think it's really now high time for this, especially if we still need to persuade someone. There are criteria, but there is also politics. It was politics behind enlargement always, as today in Cyprus there are talks about multi-annual financial framework where we have politics again, French elections, inshallah, French elections again. So give us more concrete, action plan what we can do in next period concerning what Ioannis framed.
Yes, I think it's, first of all, a great pleasure to be here. We are very good friends with Ioannis, but I'm not praising the work of ELIAMEP in this regard because of that friendship. I think this is really important. Perceptions matter, and there is a perception that our region, and I agree with the minister, I think we should start promoting the term Southeastern Europe more, because there is no Europe in the phrase Western Balkans. And surprisingly, for many European citizens within the member states, they mentally place our region somewhere in the periphery, but we are actually surrounded by member states. We are within European geography already. So, and I think the term was coined in the Foreign Commonwealth Office, Western Balkans. Now that the Brits have left us,
You should have taken it.
we can move towards Southeastern Europe. I don't think this region is a burden. I think economically we run between 14 and 15 billion euros trade deficit annually with the European Union. And the European Union invests by way of grants about 1/10 of that figure annually. We also have the significant challenge of brain drain. Today, it is easier for the citizens of the region to move to the EU individually with their families than to believe and stay and be part of the reforms that are needed for the countries, for the nations to join. So in a way, we are in a race against time. We also talk about enlargement at a time where we have the Russian war in Ukraine, where we have a highly unpredictable global state of play. And I think enlargement is also very much a security issue. It is a matter of consolidating your borders. And the European project started as a peace project. And in many ways, the only long-term sustainable vision for our region, for peace, for good governance, is the European integration. When borders don't matter much, less and less, when European integration is lagging, you have political forces in this or that country using the borders, ethnic borders, etc., greater states, going back to the old narrative. So we remove the prospects of European integration, we are back, we invite the demons back in many ways. Another argument is, even before, at the very start of this commission, it was promoted as a geopolitical commission. Europe would like to be a factor globally, but if you cannot be a local shaper, and our region is local for the European Union, with the extreme leverage because of the BESA of Thessaloniki, where membership was promised, how can you hope to make a difference in other places of the world? So then, and I'm gonna finish in this round with this, there is a bias against, there is an image challenge that we all face, not always justifiable. So some member states would say, but this has to be a merit-based process, yes, and usually there is a presumption that our countries are all lagging behind, where actually we are now stuck. So we don't hear a lot about North Macedonia these days, but on media freedom, we are doing much better than most of the member states of the EU in our region. We are about 35th, 37th, Reporters Beyond Borders in the global index. Even Italy is doing less good. And you wouldn't know this, right? So there is a sort of built-in bias against our countries, and I think we need to be active, we need to engage. It's not a done deal. It's not a given. I was recently in France with a group of like-minded enthusiasts / masochists still fighting for enlargement. We have a lot to do in that country. And in that country, there has to be either a successful referenda or 3/5 majority in both chambers of parliament. Elections are coming. So, and
Rafales are being sold around and nothing.
And we need, I think, as a region, plus Ukraine and Moldova, we need to act in unison and in solidarity. We need to do everything that we can to help Albania and these efforts, to make sure that Montenegro is a success, because Especially, I mean, if those two fail, the message will be devastating for the region, that all of these talks about momentum and everything, and when the time comes to actually do it, if nothing happens, this will be devastating. So we are in critical times, and we don't have the luxury of relaxing. We all need to do what we can to make sure that we have successes.
Nikola's minister has to go. I need to give him just the floor to wrap up 2 minutes, and then we can continue. And it's about, now we have ambassador of Germany to Kosovo here. We have former ambassador of the US to Serbia. We have ambassador of Austria to Bulgaria here. So what will be your messages to distinguished EU member states about the homework, and of course to our US friends and allies that are sending these mixed messages in today's turbulent times?
I'll start with the US. All my life, in my 35 years in the service, I've seen the US support Europe, support enlargement, support the future of the Balkans in the European Union. This has been always the mantra, because a stronger Europe was in the interest of the United States. Well, the current administration has a different foreign policy, slightly different foreign policy. It's not unusual to have differences in different administrations of the US. I hope that they will not be disrupting at least our drive. I see no sign on this, and I hope that they will always be supporting democracy, development, growth, and this coincides with everything we want to do in our country and everything we want to do as a projected country member of the European Union. So for this, we are clear. Now, to our friends in Europe, we tell one thing: we are not around the table. So we are not there. We cannot defend ourselves. So we have the European Commission who speaks on our behalf, who speaks and responds to the request of the member states regarding reforms, what we do, how we do, and so on and so on. But of course, we work with them bilaterally. We work with them in Tirana, we work with them in every capital at every time, and we tell them one thing: we are serious, test us on reforms, but please see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is where we come from, what we have done, what we have achieved, how we achieved this, and is it enough proof that we will continue to do this also for joining the European Union and becoming, then when we become and behave as a member of the European Union. I tell them one thing: please look at us with how we are, or not how we are perceived sometimes. What Albania brings: we bring predictability. Our foreign policy, our positions, our lines are very clear. We align, of course, 100% since 300 years with the common foreign security policy of the European Union. This is a given. I mean, whatever it takes, we will always adopt the Union common foreign policy, even if it takes to really not please some of the other partners, because that is a choice. We have not taken any menu. We have taken everything. And it's very clear. So it is with this mindset that we are doing things and reforms in Albania, and it is with this mindset that we are raising our younger generation, that we have to behave as good citizens, as European citizens, because we feel European, and we are and will be European. So this is what we tell our friends.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us this morning. We'll continue.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. It's fine. We know each other.
I'm
so
sorry
we'll
that I cannot
continue
hear
somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck further in the day. Bye. Mr. Hodžaj, we've met when you were foreign minister, now again in this other capacity, but talking about repercussions that this delay, and especially the case of Serbia-Kosovo, because it is one of the very open topics out there in our region. How this, I can say, was it, stabilocracy towards Vučić over the years and not moving forward in the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina? What can we do from this point on? We saw the measurement of Brussels concerning the money being given to Belgrade, but, your 5 cents from this moment on in terms of, geopolitical perspective of enlargement that basically Ioannis put out.
Thanks a lot, Ivana. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be today part of this panel, and I'm very grateful to Ioannis, for inviting me. Let me be very frank, because I mean the title of this discussion is if Europe is having a geopolitical win from enlargement process towards the Western Balkans. I think what we need first to do, Ivana, is, because some of us are quite old, engaged in the Balkans, is to keep the momentum. I remember when Croatia got membership in 2013, it was created a momentum in the region which helped the perception that in the region is everything possible in positive way. And in my view, I don't see that momentum, I don't see an approach for the time being to create that kind of the momentum among the countries in the region. What Nikola is doing is great, but I don't see also that momentum to be as a goal by the key European member states as it was in 2013. I mean, in 2012, 13, and 14, Belgrade was even playing with the idea that they might sign with Kosovo a legal binding agreement, which would mean recognizing Kosovo, or allowing Kosovo to get admission at the United Nations because of the Croatian momentum. And in my view, if ELIAMEP, if key member states of the European Union, if friends like Nikola and others are pushing that kind of the momentum in the region for 2030, I think would be everything. In our case, as a young country, I mean, Kosovo is a consolidated geopolitical reality. But the real question is if European Union is prepared to align with that reality or to manage that ambiguity. So far, European Union is treating Kosovo neither as a partner, nor as a candidate, country. After 18 years of independence, Greece, Spain, Cyprus, Romania, Slovakia are still not recognizing Kosovo. I mean, for us, Greece is more than a country. It's a center of civilization. And in my view, if this is the case, then they should behave like that. Take the decision and recognize Kosovo, because the not recognition is not any kind of bilateral political disagreement. It is a structural problem which prevents Kosovo to be part of the full architecture of the enlargement process. For the time being, we have been asked to implement reforms at home, to coordinate with the EU mission on the ground, to align our foreign policy with the European foreign policy. But 3 years ago, we applied to get candidate status. An application is still ignored, is on the table. Nobody's touching that. We are not getting even at all, Nikola, kind of explanation what is happening with our application there. I mean, how you can push a country to coordinate with EU mission on the ground, to implement reforms, to align with European standards, and then when it comes to get the right to be part of the political process, to respect the Thessaloniki agenda, then they are excluded from the process. Therefore, I think the real challenge which we have still today, it's of course Belgrade, it's of course Russia, it's of course China who are opposing us, but the real challenge which we are facing today is the way how European Union is still treating Kosovo 18 years after independence. One of the most interesting examples is our application for membership in the Council of Europe. We did everything in order to get membership in the Council of Europe. We met all criteria put by Dora Ioannis in her report. We coordinated in detail with Dora to conclude the membership in the Council of Europe. And after we met all criteria, new criteria have been introduced in order to block us to get membership in the Council of Europe. Therefore, I think it would be very important, as I'm here today in Athens and as our foreign minister was yesterday also in Delphi and had meetings with his colleague here, and ELIAMEP was always a big supporter of Kosovo when we were only a cause, not only a relative. I'm asking all of you around this table to support us. I mean, first to get membership in the Council of Europe, to conclude the process would be very important. And secondly, to get the candidate status, which could change a lot for the future.
Thank you so much. Just the mic, please. I will pass the mic, as we are now in Kosovo, to Ambassador Rudolph, because we know how strong advocate was Germany with Berlin process. Now we were in June last year in Berlin, and everyone was so happy to tell us that CDU finally, after, I don't know, 60 years, took over the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and someone said that means that they didn't care for 60 years about the foreign policy as a party. It's a joke. But I want to ask you concerning possible solutions for this, as a, differentiated integration, what Commissioner Kos is advocating, maybe to have some conditionality. As politics is behind it, can we do it by, I don't know, changing Copenhagen criteria, or we really need to wait until someone decides that it's time for a treaty change to absorb everyone? Or do we really need to wait for Ukraine because of its role in our defense? Or we can really start to try with, I don't know, Montenegro, Albania, North Macedonia in this process? I know you're ambassador in Kosovo. We can talk about Kosovo, but overall, from a German point of view, now as you are building your defense, how important is Southeastern Europe for the defense of Europe, and can we put this dividend into the enlargement process for the future from your side?
So, thank you. Let me just say I'm not here as spokesperson for the government, so just sharing some impressions from my job in Pristina, where I've been for the last 6 months now. I think the rationale, and that includes the geopolitical rationale for enlargement, which speakers before me have mentioned, is as true for us as it has always been. And it was also, in fact, this new government that's in office now for a year now that has reinforced this message. I had my foreign minister coming to Pristina and to the region when I was just there I've been there for 4 weeks, and he actually said that this was, why he was sending this message to the region. So on that level, I think it's totally undisputed. I won't really get into Western Balkans versus Ukraine enlargement, because we all know it's sort of it's the same technical instrument, if you like, but the background to those two is completely different. What I would say is two things maybe. One, I hear a lot, at least in Pristina, maybe also from other countries, this idea of reverse enlargement, you know, become a member first and then sort of negotiate the terms of membership as a member. Just as a personal view, I don't see it happening. Simply from knowing my country, any accession treaty will have to go through Parliament. Last night, someone at the dinner debate brought the example of Romania and Bulgaria. That's sort of was decided. They didn't accede, but that concept was decided 30 years ago. So I don't see that debate happening right now. What I think is so important, and Enver Hoxha will have to bear with me because he hears it from me, private or in public, almost every week, is all of you and Minister Hoxha mentioned this notion of momentum, and yes, it's totally true, and I experience it every day in my work here. Thing is, we as supporter of the region. We want to see the region in the EU, that goes for Kosovo and all the other member states. We can pick up momentum when it's there, but we cannot create it on our own. And here, just bear with me for 1 second if I share an experience from the very beginning of my diplomatic career when I was press officer in Poland 25 years ago as my first posting abroad. That was when they were negotiating for membership. And at the time they had heavy domestic disputes on just about everything, and they changed governments left to right with every election every 4 years for the first 10, 15 years or so after 1989. When I was there, they had a center-left president and a center-right government. But on one thing, on EU accession, they spoke and acted really with one voice. And there was one message, and they did everything they had to do, and whatever they had in terms of domestic issues, it never reached us, and it never, I think it's fair to say, impacted what they did for EU accession. So when there is this kind of, and as we all know, they joined the EU 15 years after their transition to democracy. So this idea sort of that we can pick up momentum when it's there, we're absolutely there. And going to support, I think, not only Kosovo, but all the other countries in the region. But we cannot create it. It has to come from all political forces in each of those countries. And we could now go through all the 5 other countries of the region. I'm not an expert for those, so I'll leave it to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we continue with the EU, I'll go to Ambassador Hill, as his veteran point of view will help us to decipher what's going on there, because we recently saw Donald Trump Jr. in Banja Luka offering to build data centers and to use huge energy potential of hydro energy in Republika Srpska for pumping it up cheaply on the borders of European Union. Second thing is that we saw what was the reaction of Belgrade on the military cooperation announced between Croatia and Albania in the framework of NATO. Third point is, again, basically the 3 Cs initiative summit that we have next week in Croatia, and how Trump in his first mandate chipped into it with Poland and Croatia, with, energy thing with LNG, and now what's going on with the change of government in Hungary. So I think all this as a part of, always present U.S. interest in the region, from energy to security. It was your agenda always, doesn't matter who's in power. But how would you decipher to us, Trump 2.0 role in the region concerning the politics, which is behind some of the actors in the region that ally basically with MAGA concepts?
Well, thank you very. Sure, I'll straighten all that out. First of all, it's a great pleasure seeing you all, and great honor, really, to be asked my opinion about, frankly, one of my favorite parts of the world, that is Southeast Europe. And I'm going to pick that up now, Nikola, and I will banish the word Balkans from my vocabulary. So I thought coming to Delphi, I'd have the opportunity to ask the Delphic Oracle, what is the Trump administration going to do next? I shouted down there, but there was no response. So, and since I don't think President Trump knows himself what he's going to do next, I think it was really an assignment too difficult for the Delphic Oracle to tell me. But let me first of all say, I cannot speak for this administration. Like what is approaching 70% of the American public, we are all mystified by this. We're mystified by what is happening in Iran. We have no idea what he plans to do next. I'm especially perplexed by the policies toward Europe, where it appears that the Trump administration is suggesting that one of our great competitors in the world is the European Union, which is in and of itself a pretty shocking and unschooled opinion of what has happened in Europe. I mean, I don't think one has to go too far out on a limb to suggest that what the development of the European Union going back to the late 50s is one of the true wonders of the world. It's one of the great achievements in Europe in peacetime. I mean, you'd have to go back to the Holy Roman Empire to find something equivalent. Of course, that was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, but this is really amazing what the Europeans have done with the European Union, and it's no surprise that people want to join it. You know, no discussion of the Balkans is complete without a short history lesson. I won't pick up the story in the 14th century, but I will mention that in 1878 in Berlin, all these peoples from southeastern Europe came to Berlin, and they found a couple of things: that their opinions were not particularly sought, even though it was their land, and more ominously, they found these groups found that it was better to find a European country who would somehow be their padre, and in so doing, they would have somebody who would always support them in their efforts against their neighbors. And I think that has been the tenor of the whole thing. That is, no one in Southeast Europe really talks about their situation without some kind of dig at the neighbors. And in talking about Poland's accession, I spent 6 years in Poland, first as a junior officer in the 80s and later coming back as ambassador when they entered the European Union. What was kind of amazing about what happened in Poland, in Hungary, which is a very good place at the time and maybe getting back there, and of course the Czech Republic, was the idea that they were all elbowing each other in the ribs as they tried to show they were the best candidate. And then people realized that didn't sell very well in European capitals. And European capitals kind of said, you know, we love Poland, we just don't like your problems. And so in a little town called Visegrad, there was an effort to try to understand that one of us may go faster alone, but we're going to go further if we stay together. And so this Visegrad process, which is now a bit of a relic, it's, I don't think, all that relevant anymore, but it was relevant at a moment in history which I think was very key for these countries. And when we think about this early accession, which was really terra incognita for the European Union to bring in countries that had just some 15 years before been part of a communist evil empire, as Ronald Reagan would say, it was quite remarkable. And one of the ways they were able to do it was to stick together. Fast forwarding now to what is going on here, or in Southeast Europe, there is continuing to be this tendency to kind of elbow each other in the ribs in order to try to get ahead. And what I find a little disheartening about it is, unwittingly, I think the European Union is helping to foster this type of internal dynamic. And I say unwittingly because I think it's the last thing Europe wants to do. And yet, the whole idea of merit-based, which is, I mean, who can be opposed to merit-based? I mean, obviously merit-based is what you want to see from these countries. But you have to be careful that in the Balkans, I'll use that expression for the following, everything gets weaponized. I mean, you pick up a stick, that becomes a weapon. You pick up a pen, that becomes a weapon. And you pick up a merit-based system, and that becomes a weapon. So everyone says, well, we're merit-based, but they're not. And this kind of stuff is really wearing people out. And if there's Balkan fatigue, you can see why, because of this this inability to foster something. Now, the Germans, I think very wisely and in a visionary mood, picked up the idea of let's have a Berlin process. Well, never mind that you shouldn't name a process in one part of Europe for the capital city of a country in another part of Europe. Putting that issue aside, the whole point was to say, come on, countries in Southeast Europe, why don't you try to address these issues together? Well, there is a problem, I think, in contemporary organizations. In the case of the European Union, it was to create a civilization, frankly. I mean, civilization was there, obviously, but the whole idea of this free trade zone, starting with the French, it was a civilization. I think the British kind of missed the point. They thought it was an economic agreement. It was really civilizational.
Let's do the U.S. thing
And
now.
so it got to be, we'll get there. I'm
But we don't
trying
have
to save
time,
the worst for last. So so the whole idea, I think, was it's become very bureaucratized. That has fed into an American attitude to the European Union, which is this is some enormous thing that's very bureaucratic. And remember, in America, there's always it's this frontier mentality. How was the West solved? It was solved by getting rid of bureaucracy. So the U.S. looks at the European in a very jaundiced view right now as an area that's very bureaucratic, that's very kind of hard to fathom, and then sees it in a way that I think is inaccurate, sees it as an economic competitor. And so I think for now, we're not going to see a lot of cooperation in the major projects that the European Union is addressing. And so therefore, I think the European Union is kind of on its own there. And I think it needs to continue what it's trying to do, but I would really urge it to try to finish the job in Southeast Asia. Don't expect the U.S. to support it or oppose it, because I don't think the U.S. understands it right now. And that will change in a number of years, because I think there will be changes in the U.S. and there will be a tendency to go back to the basic concept that the European enlargement is good for everybody, and we'd like to see more of it. But for now, it's a tough time, and I think you're on your own.
Thank you for, that's good. We know that we're on our own. Ambassador Ikic-Böhm, we had Orban, now we have Radev. And we will probably have Janša again, but talking about politics behind enlargement, I don't know if you can say what we can expect from the new government in Bulgaria, especially concerning, it's the bilateral issue, it was first the name. Now it's the language. We know the Austrian stance, and it is a strong supporter of Western Balkans, Southeastern European enlargement. But in between those two, from Vienna to Sofia and back in this space, what is your idea? How can we go forward?
First of all, I would like to really thank the organizer, Simeon Tsomokos, for the invitation, and for ELIAMEP to be able to participate today. And I have to say I'm very honored to be at this very honorable panel. And I would like to regain a little more enthusiasm at the table. because we started enthusiastically, and there is no reason to stop short. On the contrary, we have to continue. What is Austria's view on that? Let me give you 3 key messages, and many have been heard, but I reiterate them also from our point of view. So, enlargement is the most important geopolitical instrument we have. And yes, it is about security, it is about economy, and it is about stability. It is what we want, a strong Europe based on rule of law, on fundamental rights. And it is not an act of charity. It is in our own interest that we enlarge the European Union. And I think we have to work on the momentum to gain speed. What was said, we don't know what the member states think when there is enlargement. I think that a member state, Austria, gains as much as by enlargement as the candidate countries or the potential candidates will bring to the European Union. It's about economy, it's about security, and we enlarge our area of interest. And the second key message I would like to take here is that we have to make this process more dynamic. And yes, Austria is thinking and has been thinking for a long time, and you know Austria has been a staunch supporter of European integration of the Western Balkans from the outset. We must make this process reliable and credible. And when one member state fulfills, one candidate country fulfills the criteria, then we must take him on board. And for this, we have initiated the concept of gradual integration. This was back in 2022, initiated by then Foreign Minister Schallenberg. And because there is not black and white only, European integration is something that has to be felt by the people in the candidate countries as well. And there are many things we can do. Go to Brussels, have meetings together, go to the region. I can talk about this more if you like. And not only this, we also have to make we have to streamline the process, which means we have so many unanimity decisions, countless, but we could put them together, for instance, and do that en bloc. I can also speak about that in more detail if you like. And my third message is that, yes, it has been said it's a merit-based approach. It must be true for all candidates, and all conditions must be the same, all procedures must be the same, potential candidates, because the European Union has to remain functional at the same time. So, and I believe in the power of transformation. Let me just briefly mention, I say that with a lot of conviction. I started working in the foreign ministry in Vienna at the department preparing Austrian accession to the European Union. I know what it means to be outside. I was outside myself, but we worked to be inside. And a lot has changed ever since. Transformation also meant a lot in the administrative process. And I had the honor of being posted 3 times to Croatia in different functions. Over 17 years, I've witnessed what it means to go from a country that had seen the war to an EU member state. It was a moving moment on the 1st of July 2013, from state building, from institution building, from having a great process, and not to speak now about Schengen and about the euro. So I think that there is a lot of potential in it. And I completely agree with what has been said before by the distinguished participants and their excellencies. Yes, we have to see a success in the next 2 to 3 years. We have to see a success now with Montenegro, Albania, but all other member states to move forward and to have tangible results and to really give them a chance. If we integrate them, for instance, in programs of education, of science, if we have a closer cooperation with the police in Frontex, it's all in our own interest as well. And I'm not shying away from the question that has been asked at the outset, but I'm really one of those who has been posted around the area, and in Austria we really believe in enlargement, and we have to promote it. There was a huge vote in favor of former President Radev's coalition, and the parliament has yet to be constituted, the government has yet to be formed. What we have heard so far is that the goal of this coalition, of President of now, head of the coalition, Mr. Radev, is to have a strong Bulgaria in a strong Europe. Now, I can tell you what I personally expect. If we consider that Europe can only be strong if we speak with one voice, if we are united, then what I expect is, and what I really believe is that we will see Bulgaria that is pro-European and continue their path, and we also want to see a Bulgaria, and hope very much, and I'm confident, that promotes European integration of all candidate countries and all potential candidate countries, because they are in the region, and this is something we share, the interest in European integration, and this way forward, and this being together, and this cooperation, and this is what we can tell at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. After this round, I have to say I am not optimistic, because we started with the thesis that Western Balkans enlargement should be presented not as a liability but a strategic asset, and ELIAMEP produced tens of studies concerning Western Balkans as a defense asset, as Ioannis explained in the beginning. You know, bridging the gap between defense and enlargement, new narratives and ideas, raw and critical materials. I have to add energy, people, and we still hear that Brussels and Europe is bureaucracy, and maybe Europe itself is a liability for itself, not a strategic asset in geopolitics game, unfortunately. This is what we're experiencing at the continent also. So I want to give floor back to Ioannis to see who is this Calvary within Western Balkans and in European states who can fight this agenda that you positioned out there.
Thank you, Ivana. I totally agree that the panel today shows the problem, I think. We start by saying geopolitical Europe, enlargement, new momentum, enthusiasm by Minister Hoxha. We ended up talking about problems again, right? And this is a problem. It's not a problem of the Western Balkans. It's as much a problem of the EU itself, of the member states. We have the mentality of the past. So let's change that. And the reason we have the initiative, Think New Narratives of EU Integration, is that we talk about geopolitics, we talk about European strategic autonomy, but we don't connect these amazing, huge challenges of the EU with enlargement policy. Okay? And let me give you two examples. And I'm very happy that I get a pass from Ambassador Ikic-Böhm. Not a charity, it's in our interest. Not charity, it's in our interest. So two examples. Defense, major priority of the EU. It was not in the past, it is now. It is today, right? REARM, Europe, safe regulation, Ukraine, support for Ukraine, etc. Do we connect defense policy with enlargement? Do we see our enlargement accession countries as partners that will contribute to defense readiness? No, we still see them as a problem. The Western, well, Southeast European non-EU countries spend above the EU average when it comes to defense. They contribute to Ukraine war effort, even Serbia, even though it's not openly said, right? We all know they do. The region has more than 200 defense serious, very good competitive defense industry companies. More than 100 of them are in Serbia. Serbia itself exports to more than 50 countries. It's very competitive markets. Bosnia and Herzegovina, in EU you talk Bosnia and Herzegovina, they all think it's only problems. Problems, problems, problems. You know there is more than 5,000, yeah, more than 5,000 employees in more than 20 companies in Bosnia and Herzegovina that produce serious internationally competitive defense products. And only in one company in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not in Republika Srpska, in the Federation, if that matters, for me it doesn't matter, produces more than 500,000 artillery rounds, NATO-compatible artillery rounds in 1 year annually, and they have the dynamic, the potential to produce 1 million. Do you know what is the goal of the EU for defense readiness of the EU? 2 million. So you can get half of the artillery round production of the entire EU only in Bosnia and Herzegovina if you seriously engage with Bosnia and Herzegovina and the rest of the region. Okay? We presented this data more than a year ago. First time it was in Paris. It was very well received. Everybody was very interested. When we presented this data, this company was Bosnia-owned. Today, this company has American capital. So the Americans went in. The Europeans are still talking about a war and the problems of the Western Balkans. The Americans jumped on the opportunity, and now they have invested in this. Sorry, Ambassador. They invested in this company. The Brits are doing the same. Turkey is doing the same, and not to mention China. So everybody else except the EU sees the potential of the region. Only the EU does not see the potential of the region. They see only problems. And they see Serbia, Kosovo, they see migration. Of course, if you go to any hospital in Germany, most likely you will be treated by a doctor from the Western Balkans or Southeast Europe, from North Macedonia, from Serbia, etc. Right? So, how does the EU respond to this problem? Institutional exclusion. The Western Balkans are not included in the safe regulation. They're not included in the European Defence Fund. They're not included in the European Defence Programme. Not included, even though we hope to have them in a few years part of the EU. Okay? This is the reality. Second example, and give me 2 minutes, Ivana. Critical raw material, international competitiveness, we are lagging behind as EU, China, and the US and others. We are left behind, and so on and so forth. The critical raw material agenda, etc. European strategic autonomy, sovereignty, etc. Does the EU do anything about this? Does it link critical raw material agenda with EU enlargement policy? No. The EU, the Western Balkans,
we did in
South
Serbia,
Europe,
so you had 2 million people on the street,
it's not
right?
only lithium, because we always talk about lithium, and it's a serious problem when society is against it. But there is a number of other opportunities to use production and use the European regulations to make sure that it's environmentally sound. But the EU is not helping because the EU does not see these issues through the integration mindset. So the Western Balkans produce significant reserves in copper, aluminium, bauxite, nickel, antimony, lithium, magnesium, cobalt, and rare earth materials. All of them are very relevant for EU's green transition, industrial competitiveness, defense capacity, economic security, European strategic autonomy. Okay, all of these. And the EU does not see the potential in linking its value chains with the Western Balkans. Let me give you again a few examples, because I said in the beginning, this is based on data. It's not just geopolitical fluff. It's a reality that we need to connect with the region, and it's in our interest, not charity, Ambassador. Thank you very much for this. So, Bosnia-Herzegovina, problematic country, we don't want Bosnia-Herzegovina. It's a country that produces, okay? 1.8 billion in aluminium and related articles exports to the EU in the last 3 years. 440 million in aluminium oxide, hydroxide exports to the EU. Albania exported, and this is where the problem comes, not for Albania, but the EU is not engaging with the region. Albania exported 80 million in raw copper to China. 75% of that came back to the EU processed. So the EU does not care about what's happening in the region, see Albania as a problem, see Bosnia as a problem. China comes in, gets the raw material, it processes and exports back to the EU. This is what's happening. So they get raw material from the center of Europe. The Western Balkans is the center of Europe. Take it to China, process it, and send it back to the EU as exports. And we are still discussing whether we need to integrate these countries who are surrounded by EU member states. Thank you very much, Nikola. Surrounded by EU member states. This is not the 1990s. If we are serious about international geopolitical Europe, about EU strategic autonomy, about being serious players, we have to integrate the Western Balkans and also Moldova and Ukraine. It's in our interest. It's not a burden. It's a benefit for the EU. It will be a geopolitical win for the EU, and it's not charity, Ambassador. Thank you very much.
Can I just add one more statistic to your statistics, which was in 23 and 24, those 2 years, Serbia sold to the United States. We purchased from Serbia $2 billion worth of munitions, primarily 155s, 122 grads, 120 heavy millimeter mortars, and 80 millimeter light mortars. So I can't say how much Serbia exported to the European Union, but I'm sure it was a major figure.
And concerning what Ioannis and Ambassador Hill just said, I want to just give you a round to think, where are these basically blind spots that we all detected in this EU approach. And I want to just chip in with a category, it's my story, I think it's very important, of democracy also as a part of, security dividend, because we see this fragility because of politics at the end and because of state of democracy and rule of law, which needs to be abided to have the geopolitics in play. So maybe two of you, and then we'll have round with the ambassadors and slowly wrap up with some recommendations. So, what are these blind spots that fail to recognize the geopolitical asset of the region, which you see?
I think the main reason why European Union is still perceiving the region in early 1990s perceptions has to do mostly with the current leadership. I think the biggest challenge which Europe is facing is, for the time being, leadership within the member states, but also leadership within the Commission and European institutions. I'm not here in order just to provide to you with a critical voice and tone, but I do not remember that somebody from the Commission was visiting the region in the last 3 years. And as somebody is quite long in the politics, I remember Solana coming to the region each third, fourth month. Ashton coming to the region. Mogherini visiting the region. I don't know what Kaja Kallas is doing, to be very frank. I was a big admirer of her as she was Prime Minister. The way how she understood geopolitics in Europe. But the way how she is treating the region, by not even visiting us, but not even talking to us, but not even inviting us in order to think and rethink what the region can do, for Europe. For me, it's a problem.
Thank you for this.
And I
We have-
hope what ELIAMEP produced, that is eyes-opening, not only for them, but also for us. Because also we need to change the narrative. I mean, we might have some concerns, we might have some expectation, we need the help of the member states and of the institutions, but we need also to bring something on the table why we are important for you.
Yeah. Nikola,
Yeah,
this is a good point, I think. Leadership crisis and ideas.
definitely,
overall.
yeah. I think we have a global leadership crisis in many ways. Well, you can argue in our region as well.
But just now, to-do list for the end. not
So
to
to-do
contemplate.
list.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but I think we have to face reality. We need an emboldened Friends of Enlargement, Friends of the Region group of member states to really push this. The driver behind the enlargement momentum is not our region, it's Ukraine. So we need countries, member states like Austria, to make sure that any opening for anyone else is also applies for our region. Then I think we have to stop pretending, faking it. We all love the phrase merit-based, but if we have a bit more time, I can tell you about several countries, why the process is actually not merit-based. You can never reconcile a bilateral dispute blocking accession for 5, 10, 15 years and a merit-based process. By level of preparedness, my country is today number 2 behind Montenegro, based on the Commission reports, because they're quantifiable, so you can see in which chapter how we are doing.
And it's politics.
Are we
again,
talking
bilateral
about my
dispute.
country
Yes.
today? No.
Yes.
Because we are parked over an issue that is not really Copenhagen criteria, fighting corruption, free media, democracy. So I think we have to face reality. We didn't talk about everything today. Also this obsession
We cannot talk about everything. We talk about
with some
their
member
study.
states, for them enlargement is only possible if it's coupled with internal EU reforms. Decision making, the financial aspects, that debate is not really there yet. And I picked it up in France. For them, they say enlargement fine, but we have to start talking seriously. So
And who is advocating for this in the room of the European Council at the moment, discussing the new multi-annual financial framework, for example? I don't know who are these countries who talk around the table.
So that's why
Enlargement was the subject.
it's an unfinished job. To me, in today's world, it's a no-brainer. We are talking about Europe. That is about territory, population, the might of the single market, the investment in Europe's defense, and how are we seen? Are we seen as a principled player? Because I don't think Europe can compete in military might with our American friends.
Or China.
But I think the value that we have is to be seen as a principled player. This is also shaky today, because we have one set of rules for an area that is of our interest and a different set of rules. So, yeah,
So, yeah, we'll continue. Yeah.
you asked a broad question and you pushed me to give,
No,
what
it's not
to
a
do,
broad question, just to-do list. You know it, you can give it out of your hand. So it's not broad, it's very to the point.
And
you said it to
our
the point.
countries
we
make
have a
ourselves
reaction
more-
from Ioannis, right? Yes. But I have to interrupt you because you intervened. You're not part of the panel, and we did not plan the questions or the interventions. Still, EU is not Brussels. EU is member states, and European Council is still the place where things are unfortunately deciding, and the politics of EU countries is dictating the rhythm very much. So I want to give the floor to Ambassador Ikic to wrap up.
Thank you very much. Just to reiterate what former minister has said, Western Balkans is our inner yard. It is our close interest. We should treat them not as third countries, but as close allies. And thank you for mentioning the Friends of the Western Balkans, another initiative by Austria in 2023 to keep momentum up and keep Western Balkans enlargement high on the agenda. The fulfillment of criteria, yes, important, it's an obligation, absolutely, but it's also a promise. It's a promise that then, when everything is fulfilled, this promise will be kept. And my point is that I would like to make is we have to make European integration be visible by being reliable in the process, but also by making the people feel it. I'm not talking about governments, I'm talking about the people in the candidate countries, in the potential candidate countries, in the member states. What does it feel? And gradual integration that we suggest is, I think, one of the possibilities that could help us steps forward to take the people with us and to make sure they don't lose sight. You only believe in something that you can really see and feel. Thank you.
Ambassador Rudolph, please.
No, very briefly, just to add one thought. What I notice in my everyday work across Kosovo is that for young people, and I try to visit many schools and universities, their discussion is completely detached from what we've been discussing this morning. So many of them see their individual futures somehow related to European Union. They ask me, can I come to Europe to study, to work, or everything? When I ask them back, you should, push your politicians for you Kosovars to become EU citizens, and then, all these questions. It's not a debate they're having, and that is really a bit a sense of concern, really, because it shows that for this generation born after the war, it's no longer an operational question the way it should be, in my sense, and that's where I think we have to get back to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Ioannis, to wrap up.
The criteria are there. No one said the region should go under the bar. Totally need reforms to be done, totally need to do everything that needs to be done. I'm not going to go into the debate whether when previous reforms, previous changes were under difficult circumstances implemented, whether they were actually rewarded by the EU, because the North Macedonia example is, I think, cardinal here. But let's not go into this. But the EU also needs to connect different policies that are crucial for its future: competitiveness, economic sovereignty, European strategic autonomy, defense, with enlargement policy. It's unthinkable that we don't use the potential of the region, and we still see the region as primarily a problem or unreformed area. It's in the middle of Europe. It needs to be integrated. It has potential. It has benefits for the EU. In the past, they have mobilized both at the level of grassroots and at the level of political elites. They have not been rewarded. Now we need to show, hopefully through the accession of Montenegro and Albania very soon, but also through signaling to the rest that things are changing. And I'm sorry, I know you work for the European Union, but it's not only a problem of political elites or reforms in the Western Balkans. It is also a problem of mentalities in Brussels and European capitals. And I mean, come from the EU, I can be self-critical here, okay? We also need to change to understand the potential.
I completely second that as a moderator. Thank you all. Next time we will include France, Serbia, European External Service, and young people, and we will have peace in the world. Thank you. Open the Hormuz Strait. Bye.